I'm home. I can finally touch you again.
Monday on the summer finale.
I got an email from Juilliard.
And?
Stop hitting on my girlfriend, man.
Does he always get this worked up?
Watch your damn mouth.
You have to leave her alone. She's afraid of you.
He's here.
Get in the car. Just get in the car.
The Fosters summer finale, Monday, 8/7 Central on Freeform.
Hello, my beautiful people, and welcome back to the Happiest Cast on Earth, the show where we review anything and everything that was somehow released by the Walt Disney Corporation. I am your host, as always, Ryan Johnson, and today we have ourselves a bit of a treat because we shall be taking a look at The Fosters. Now, The Fosters is a very interesting show because while it is a freeform series, it started off as a ABC family series. So, yeah, it's one of those weird shows that was a transitional period between networks changing their names, a la Supernatural. So The Fosters is, as I mentioned, a teen drama, which automatically means that, everybody's going to make the most rational decisions, and everybody's going to act like how a human being would actually act in that scenario. No questions about it. Can I just be 100% frank with my audience right here? I do not care at all for teen dramas. Like, specifically, like, the CW, like, freeform type of teen dramas that are overly exaggerated to an unself-aware extent, where they always feel the need to solve a murder somehow. So I never really got into shows like Riverdale or Euphoria or Pretty Little Liars or, yes, even The Fosters. The most of what I know about The Fosters was just general pop culture osmosis on the fact that there is an ABC family show called The Fosters, and an interesting behind-the-scenes tidbit of the show. So one of the show's main actors was Jake T. Austin. He was a relative young talent at the time. He first got notoriety for playing Max Russo on the Disney Channel sitcom The Wizards of Waverly Place. And if you were to ask me, he did a pretty good job on that show, which made sense that Disney would bring him on to be in another show once that show ended up wrapping up, and once he started to, shall we say, graduate out of being a Disney Channel star. So he was brought on to play the character of Jesus on The Fosters. But then everything changed in October of 2013 when Jake T. Austin got a DUI. He was pulled over for driving without headlights. That same month, his vehicle was involved in a 4-car hit-and-run crash in Sherman Oaks, California. Shortly after this, Disney fired him from the show, and the next season, he was replaced with Noah Centineo, a man who has absolutely no controversies whatsoever. I don't know how many people out there can agree with me on this statement, but dear God, I cannot stand Noah Centineo. Much like Jake T. Austin, he also got his start on Disney Channel being a supporting character in the show Austin and Ally. However, his performances were not as respected as Jake T. Austin because he was infamous for being a very bad underactor. I do not think that Noah Centineo is a very good actor. He always seems like he's under the influence, and it's very clear from an audience perspective that Disney is just trying to make him the next Zac Efron. And so is Hollywood, apparently, because even though he sucks, like, really badly, they just keep getting him roles. Like, he was in Black Adam, he's gonna be Ken in the new Street Fighter movie, and he's even going to be playing John Rambo in the upcoming prequel. I'm not making that up. We're going from Stallone to Noah Centineo. Biggest downgrade of the century. But I think the biggest reason I do not like Noah Centineo at all is not necessarily the things that he has done, but what his family has done. You see, Noah Centineo, like a lot of untalented young actors, is a Nepo baby. Specifically, Noah's father is Gregory Vincent Centineo, a businessman, film producer, and former coffee shop owner and pastor who is infamous for being involved in the making of Legend of Oz, Dorothy's Return, which is noted as one of the biggest scams in filmmaking history, where the movie was basically crowdsourced by con artists, where all of the investors were promised the next big animated film franchise, where all they got was a movie, a video game tie-in, a handful of toys, and they just ran away with the money, Noah Centineo's dad included. So yeah, needless to say, I'm not very fond of the Centineos in general. And I know that this will never happen, but I kind of hope that in every single interview that Noah Centineo is forced to do, whether it's for Street Fighter or John Rambo or anything, somebody is legally required to bring up the Legends of Oz scandal and all the weird, screwed up, illegal stuff his dad has done. But I guess with all of that weird behind the scenes drama out of the way, I guess let's talk about the episode, which, I'm gonna be honest, going into this, I didn't think that I would get anything out of this one. It was like, Season 4, Episode 10, Collateral Damage is what the episode is called. And I didn't think I would get anything out of a teen drama show. And I didn't think I'd get anything out of a teen drama show this late into its run. Oh, I was wrong. Right out of the gate, during the Previously On segment, I had a bit of glee because I got to see Noah Centineo get hurt. Oh boy. After the Previously On, we get a little bit of an exposition dump. So apparently there was this friend of one of our main characters. I didn't learn any of their names, and I don't think it matters, and I also don't think that they clarified, but one of their friends actually died because they were at the hands of a really bad foster care system. And this especially hits close to home because the grand majority of the kids in this family were foster care, which means, I kid you not, this is a show about foster kids, and their last names are Foster. Did a friggin' 9-year-old come up with that? Like, that's just incredibly dumb. Alright, so what are the different foster kids that we have? Well, we got Callie, we got Mariana, we got Jesus, that's Noah Centineo, and he has ADHD. That's a big plot point in this episode. We got Jude, and we got Brandon. Now, I believe Brandon, he is actually applied to Juilliard. He applied to Juilliard, and it looks like he got an acceptance letter. Yeah, our boy is going to Juilliard. But what about the other kids? Don't pay any attention to them. Something that I will pay attention to is one of the big attributes that was going for this show when it came out, and that was the fact that the family is headed by two mothers. This, of course, was pretty revolutionary at the time for television. Today, it is still iffy for certain shows to do that, especially when they are owned by Disney. But regardless, it is still some pretty cool representation at the end of the day. The show got plenty of GLAAD nominations. And while I may not have the fondest things to say about the show itself, I do applaud it for, at the very least, trying to get some really good representation out there. Afterwards, we get the intro, and yeah, it is definitely an intro for a teen drama. So the moms are in bed. They're about to go to bed. They're talking about their family's future and how their son's going to Juilliard and how one of their daughters wants to set up this charity thing about the foster kid, and on how one of the moms, Steph, kind of wants to quit her job, or at the very least get a promotion at her job. She's been a cop for like 20 years and she wants something different. And more importantly, she is sick of wearing that uniform, which is why her wife puts on her uniform and they do a little bit of role play, and she has the handcuffs, so things are about to get a little steamy, maybe a little too steamy for freeform, if you catch my drift. They instantly cut to the next day. Steph is at work, she's talking to her boss, and he's all for her getting the promotion, especially since Detective Gray is all for the promotion too. So Detective Gray, he's not a good guy because he almost deported the parents of a child who got sexually assaulted, and he allowed the child molester to go out on the streets completely with no charges. So yeah, he's not a good guy. I'm gonna be completely honest. That part was kind of the only part of the episode that I kind of got a little bit of investment in, because it wasn't about a bunch of high schoolers dealing with a bunch of stupid crap that's not gonna matter in a month. We have an officer dealing with a really bad, corrupt cop on the force and letting criminals walk the street, and she has to deal with it. But even then, we have the part where her wife Lena is like, "Hey, maybe you should stay out of this." Dude, she's going to get that promotion anyway, let's be honest. Plus, the pedophile on the loose who has done bad things to kids. You think she would let that slide? Probably not, if she's a decent human being. But then the story just ends there for the episode. I assume that it gets picked up in the next episode, but it isn't really touched upon anymore. We then see that one of the daughters, Mariana, is doing really, really bad in class. Now, during the previously on segment, we saw that she would take a lot of Noah Centineo's ADHD pills when she isn't supposed to do that. So that's a large part of why she is failing in school. She then gets a phone call where it's, surprise, surprise, some guy. Now, based on some context clues, I can kind of tell that this guy, his name is Nick, was apparently a pretty big part of the show and how they used to be a thing, and now Nick is under house arrest. So Mariana is dating this Matt guy, and they seem to be doing pretty well, and Matt is also going to be going off to college at some point, which is a school called Berkeley, and so, Mariana's a little bit bummed about it. The rest of the episode is set at this little benefit fair where the whole family is trying to raise money for their little charity to help the foster kid who is dead. Meanwhile, at the same time, one of our main characters, I forget her name, is trying to do a little bit of investigating into a murder, because all teen dramas feel the need to solve murders apparently. She's being helped by her friend Aaron, who is noticeable because Aaron is in fact a trans man played by a trans actor, which is objectively some pretty neat representation, especially since previously a lot of trans characters were not played by trans actors. However, this is when things start to get a little crazy because Aaron and her spend a lot of time together, but her boyfriend is like challenged by Aaron, and because he thinks that Aaron has feelings for her. But like when her and her boyfriend have like a heart to heart, I believe her name is Kylie, he screams at Kylie thinking that Aaron is coming on to her, but Kylie is like, hey, Aaron is a trans man from the way that she reacted to this, it made it sound like, look, he's trans. He can't possibly be attracted to a woman. Like, that's not what she said, but it's definitely what the writing and even the performance came across. Like, it's not till later when they have another conversation where Kylie is like, hey, wait a minute, he can like women because he's trans, he's just as much as a man as you are. To me, it just kind of feels like overcorrecting from what happened earlier. Another thing worth pointing out is that Noah Centineo hears about what's going on with Mariana, and so he approaches Nick at his house, who is under house arrest, and he's like, hey, stay away from my sister. However, something worth noting about this scene is that, dear God, the audio in this scene and in just about every single scene afterwards is horrendous. Everything sounds like it was ADR'd with just the cheapest mic that they could possibly get at Five Below. But when they're outside, it will do this stupidly confusing thing with the audio. And that is, they will cut out the background noise and just have music playing when nobody is speaking. But when the character needs to speak, they will bring back the background noise. And it is so noticeable. Especially if you have worked with audio before. Because I guarantee you, that is exactly what they did. Because it just makes you wonder, well, why didn't they just use the full audio tape? Was it that bad when they filmed it? Well, then it clearly wouldn't be, because they clearly are using the moments where the characters are speaking instead of just going back to ADR it. This whole audio thing was just driving me nuts for the rest of the episode after this. You cannot believe it. So Mariana is talking to her boyfriend, and she mentions that she's going to go to another school called Berkeley, but they then realize that it's not the same Berkeley, because her Berkeley has a robotics program, and his Berkeley, it's a music school. So she has a bit of an episode over that. Meanwhile, we get this other kid. I don't think we learned his name in this episode. He's obviously one of the Fosters, and I'm just going to take a wild guess and assume that he's a gay kid, because we get this other guy who walks up to him, and our foster kid's like, you're not supposed to be here. But then the other guy whips out a cigarette, and then they go off together, and they're not seen for the rest of the episode. And this is like halfway through the episode, so yeah, that's all he does this week. It almost feels like that scene specifically was only written into the episode just to give him something to do this week, even if it's not a lot. Because this does seem like one of those shows where they have to find something for everybody in the main cast to do. It doesn't matter how small or insignificant it is to the overall episode, as long as somebody in the cast is doing something, that's all that matters to them. But anyway, we get into some, juicy drama. But anyway, the kid who got accepted into Juilliard is there performing, and he's performing with a band called Someone's Little Sister, which is one of the worst band names I have ever heard in my entire life. And they play a song called Collateral Damage. Oh, bravo. Bravo, guys. You worked the name of the episode into the episode completely naturally. Great job on that one. Yeah, before all that happened, his sister walks up to the mic protesting the fact that there's another foster care bill that is getting signed, but it's being funded by the people who were responsible for the foster kid's death. So she's not happy about that. So she was like, hey, everybody vote for our bill instead. Which apparently she was also doing some illegal stuff, like opening other people's mail and stuff like that. But whatever, I'm not an activist. So meanwhile, Mariana has gone missing. She is MIA from everybody because she is seeing things. She is seeing Nick, for instance. But Nick is at home. So, yeah, Mariana is high, I guess, off of the ADHD pills. So her entire family, or at least half of them, are looking for her, namely Noah Centineo and his girlfriend, and the girl from earlier who is trying to figure out the murder. Yeah, early in the episode, they're also trying to raise funds for like a proper trial and investigation for this guy Kyle Snow, who was wrongly accused of murder. However, a family member of one of the victims was like, hey, he's the killer. And she's like, no, he's not. But more on that later. Mariana is loose. I believe it was one of the siblings. It was. I think it was Mariana. I honestly can't remember. One of them's in the bathroom, and there's this weird guy who, before then, was just a guy in the background who didn't want to sign, and he didn't have any lines until he shows up in the women's bathroom and he's like, why are you following me? Why are you in my house? The kid's like, I don't know who you are. And she's freaking out, rightfully so, because there's this strange man that she never met before in the women's bathroom. And so, scared out of her mind, she leaves the restroom as soon as she can. Meanwhile, while the performance is going on, Lena gets a phone call, which is work related, and she needs to be in a quieter space to take the proper call, and she leaves. But where she ends up, she is closer to the performers than she was earlier. So, congratulations, you took yourself to a louder place. And the phone call was that her son didn't actually get accepted into Juilliard, so she pulls her aside and they have a heart to heart about it. However, the crazy stuff comes at the very end of the episode. Nick has broken his ankle bracelet and is trying to find Mariana. He confronts her and she never wants to see him again. Meanwhile, one of the daughters from earlier gets in a car with the man who said that Kyle Snow was not a murderer earlier in hopes to search for Mariana. However, she gets a phone call saying that the murderer was most likely somebody who was very close with the victims. So she looks at the guy in the car, and that's the last we see of them. So I guess he's the killer. And the episode itself ends with Noah Centineo, girlfriend, and their mom finding Mariana and Nick. And Noah Centineo just beats the crap out of Nick. Mariana is screaming and stop, and then Nick delivers another punch and just knocks out Centineo, which, yes, I needed this episode to bookend with more of Noah Centineo getting hurt. And then the episode ends. Presumably it will be resolved in the next episode, but I don't really care about what the next episode has in store. But I will go ahead and throw in this. Apparently, there is a spin-off. The show is called Good Trouble. It started airing right when the original series ended, and according to Wikipedia, it follows Callie Adams Foster and Mariana Adams Foster after they move out of the family home and into a communal living space in Los Angeles while embarking on the next phase of their lives. So two characters that had very significant roles in this episode got their own spin-off. So, with all that said, The Fosters Season 4 Episode 10 Collateral Damage. I'm not gonna lie, I do definitely see the appeal for this type of show and for this episode. It's just not for me. And for my podcast, that's kind of the most important part. There were just so many not good television making that I noticed. The typical teen drama plots of needing to solve a murder and the love triangles and all that crap. Some characters just didn't have anything to do in the episode and were just kind of forgotten about. And just some overall bad production value. So if I were to rank this episode on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being a grand spanking castle and 1 being a big giant Pooh Bear, I'd probably give this a 2. It was not my cup of tea, but hey, maybe you'll like it, and that's perfectly fine. Not everything has to be for everybody. But anyway, guys, that will be it for this week's episode of the Happiest Cast on Earth. What do you guys think of The Fosters, Season 4, Episode 10, Collateral Damage? Please let me know in the comments. And also, please be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow us on Spotify for weekly episodes. You should also check out my other channels, Mr. Johnson and Weird TV, because I should have some very fun updates on my upcoming horror comedy musical. And please be sure to join us next week on the Happiest Cast on Earth, where we shall be taking a look at The Simpsons, Season 26, Episode 13, Walking Big and Tall. But until then, I will see you later. Bye!